Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very happy to be bringing you yet another edition of the Sparkle and Shine interview series. Today I have the wonderful, beautiful, awesome Mukkove Johnson. She is a women's empowerment and Christian coach, specifically working with women and moms to help them move from places of being stuck or stuckness and overwhelm so that they can live a life more of peace. Mukkove and I have a little bit of a history. She is a really wonderful woman. She's a really wonderful mom. She has a lot of experience. I'll let her tell you a little bit more about that and a little bit more about it, what it is she actually does and working with people and helping them. But today with our theme, yes, we also have Mukkove's daughter and Kangaroo Girl here. They're joining us today. So, so I hope that brings a little bit of smiles and giggles to everyone's face. But again, today, since it's October, we are talking about sharing, reorienting, gearing up, and resting here for the month. And I know Mukkove has a lot of wisdom and some inspiration and encouragement and support that she would love to share with us. So we are just going to roll with this like we always do. We're just going to talk and we're going to have fun. And Mukkove, please tell us a little bit more about you.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on, Kendall. It's a lot of fun to reconnect and just chat. So I'm in Alaska, which a lot of people find fascinating. So that's kind of fun to share. Now I can't say, I've been saying I have 3 teens and a toddler, but my oldest just turned 20. So now I have 3 young adults and the toddler that was just on here. I homeschooled them all the way through until my daughter's junior year. So she's a senior this year and she's at a Christian school. And have always had a passion for coaching and helping people to figure out how to help themselves. That's that empowerment piece. Because as a life coach, I don't have all the answers, but I help you find answers and empower you to follow through on that. And I love that. My husband and I just celebrated our 25th anniversary this summer. And one of my big wins for the year is that our young adult kids actually sent us to Hawaii for our 25th anniversary. So that's a huge parenting win. There's my credentials right there.
And I remember seeing pictures or seeing a post or two about that, and I was like, "Oh, that's so fun!"
Yeah, so blown away.
Cool. Yeah, really, really, really neat. Your kids are awesome. So, thank you so much for sharing about yourself a little bit. And but before we really get started, well, actually, no, we'll just go with it. So first, I'm going to ask. I know a little bit about this, but I really would like to hear you share how it is that you decided to come into the online space to help other women and moms so they can be empowered and sort of show up in a different or better way in their own lives, or whatever that means for them. So I'd love to hear how it is that you decided to do that, because I know that you've been doing this for a really, really long time. And you're just kind of now, in the last year and a half or so, been bringing your services online and helping women in bigger ways. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I first ventured online, oh my goodness, like 2009 or something, when I wrote my first book. And of course, they say you're supposed to have an audience, build a platform if you're going to be an author. So I started trying to figure out how to do that. My first book was Christmas is About Jesus. It's a devotional. And and I love to write. So I've always blogged, but then over the last couple of years, just this growing passion to make a bigger difference and a bigger impact. And I actually started, the Lord challenged me to create a course on learning to hear his voice and spend that quiet time in a conversation instead of just talking at him, but actually allowing the space for him to talk back to us. And so I created an online course. And once he got me started on that, then he pulled on my heart that like really what I want to do is work with women one-on-one to go through that journey with them and the other things that they're dealing with to just have that one-on-one impact of like things can change. They don't have to be where they are. You're not stuck ever, no matter how much it feels like you are. And so just, yeah, have one step after another. I got certified as a life coach. And then most recently, I also got certified in CEN recovery, which is childhood emotional neglect. And that was a huge passion for me because I took the little inventory thing and you could get 21 possible points and I got 19. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was super excited to just about a month ago probably completed my certification for that.
Well,
So
that is
another tool in the tool belt.
Yes, and I love how so I love a couple of things there, right? First of all, congratulations on the new certification. I know that was something that you were working on, so congratulations on that. Um, but also let's sort of dive a little bit into how you created this course where you were given the word, if you would, to create a course to help people to find their own way to have those conversations with God or with Jesus, and how that really ties in, because I think that's one of the many pieces with what you do, and how that ties in to like this month's theme of reorienting and resting. Like tie that in, like talk about that a little deeper, because I know you got a lot of nuggets there.
Yeah, it totally ties in, because what better place to come back to like reorient and to rest than his presence and to get his perspective on things, because we get lost in like all of this is right here in front of me and I don't know what to do with any of it. But to come and to be able to spend that time to hear his perspective of like, no, it's going to be okay. Like I can see farther out than you can, or I've got more things working and going on than you know about. And so that provides a place to rest and to, be at peace, and just to have, I don't know, just that comfort of there's somebody bigger than me that knows what's going on and that cares. I can come with what is on my heart and what concerns me, and he actually cares about that stuff. And he actually has, whether it's big life crisis things that like, I don't know what to do here, or what to do with all the papers on my table. Like he has answers for both.
Yeah. And I think that's such an interesting thing, but also, at least for me, I always find it interesting, right? And the more I deepen my own relationship, then the more and more I find it interesting. But I also find that it's a place that has such heavy emotions or connotations or experiences or expectations, or just a lot of heaviness comes around A, the idea of resting, B, the idea of being able to change course or alter your course, and C, the whole idea about God and Jesus, any relationship with him or with a power greater than yourself, or however one chooses to say that. And each of those three things comes with all this heaviness. So I would really love to hear a little bit more, and I know our watchers and our listeners really, really, really want to know, how is it that you get past that heaviness so that it becomes a lot more lighter and a lot more freeing and a lot more sort of life-giving, so that it doesn't become yet, or it doesn't stay another place of stuck or overwhelmed?
Yeah, that's really good. I think one of the biggest things that makes it heavy is expectations. Like whether it's our culture or our church or our own experiences, that we come with these expectations that most often aren't helpful. Like when you talk to somebody about hearing from God, they're like, so like I'm going to hear an audible voice, and like that's really scary. And I don't think I think you're crazy if you're hearing voices, you know, like we have places for people like you. um, so like there's a lot that comes with that can be really heavy. Um, but so expecting and redefining things, I guess, because a lot of times we picture rest as a hammock on the beach and we have no responsibilities and someone's bringing us drinks and like that's not the rest he's talking about. Um, it's resting on a solid foundation. So I have my lighthouse back here. Like a lighthouse has to weather some pretty serious storms, but it is resting on bedrock.
Mm.
It's resting right there. It doesn't move when those storms hit because it's tied in to that bedrock and it is resting on that foundation. So that's the kind of resting that he's talking about. And it is, like you're saying, heavy, and I kind of want to twist that to weighty. When we see it in a healthy way, like if we're trying to carry it ourselves, then it's heavy and it's a burden. But if we can see it as like it's big, it's weighty, but we can hold it because we're designed to hold it. And so to see like, yeah, it's not this escape to the beach where I have no responsibilities. It's the stability that I can stand whatever comes my way because I'm tied into this solid foundation.
And I love how you twisted that, but I've known that there's a thing about lighthouses that you have and that you share, but I never put the pieces together actually until I just heard you talking about now, Mukkove, about how the lighthouse is designed to weather the storms because it rests on that bedrock or that solid foundation. And but how true is that, right? I mean, I live in North Carolina. I don't live on the coast. However, there are lighthouses on the coast of North Carolina. And there are also storms that come through
serious
on the
storms.
coast of North Carolina. Yes, very serious storms. There are hurricanes every now and again, and there are strong winds and all these things. But these lighthouses have been sitting there for hundreds of years. And I never really thought about it. I love the way you tied that in. And I love the way you sort of said, like, but so when I think of lighthouses, I always think of like the beam and how the beam is always there, which is, I know, part of the message that you have to share, but this piece of the foundation and how it's so solid because it is on bedrock, which is the most solid on the top of the earth, that's
what allows the light to always be there. You know, if it's on something shifting, then sometimes the light might not be there.
right. And that is perfectly true. When we talk about faith and spirituality and Jesus and God and all of these things, is that the stronger our faith is, or at least in my experience, the stronger my faith is, the better my spirituality is, and thus the better or the deeper or the more solid my connection with my higher self or Jesus or God or whatever word or phrase that people want to put there, because I know there's lots of ways people say this. And when I take the time to just relax, not with the hammock, but like the mental sort of, let me just breathe. Let me see what's happening right now. Checking in with myself, all those sorts of things. And I think it's also curious because there is a weightiness, as you said, when we change our perspective, it is a weightiness of expectation. And so as someone who's a life coach, as someone who has also recently completed your CE certification, your childhood emotional trauma?
Childhood emotional neglect.
Childhood emotional neglect. And so both of those pieces, I would love for you to share with our readers above Kangaroo Girl's screeching here. But I would love for you to, she's singing, to share with our readers, our watchers, and our listeners how it is that we can actually turn that perspective from the heavy to the weighty, because it is such a different perspective. And I know from my previous stuff and my own personal journey that things like childhood emotional neglect or trauma or any of those sorts of things, big life things that really affected us on a deep, deep level, I know how they can stick with us, and they can just really be heavy and weigh us down. But I also know the other side. However, that's what you do. So I don't want to talk about my journey. I want to talk about how it is that you have found this to work for others, and the ways that you work with others so they can get to that better place.
Yeah. So what I love to do is take those things that feel heavy and too much to carry and walk people through and teach them to take those heavy things to God, to Jesus, and be like, how do you see this? What's your intention for this? And a huge thing with those is when we have trauma of any kind, whether it's something bad that happens to us and creates a trauma, or whether it's something good that should have happened to us and didn't, which is the neglect kind of trauma, it causes wounds. And in those places of wounding, the enemy loves to come in and lie to us, and loves to come in and lie to us about who God is and about who we are. And so we get these lies about I'm not good enough, or my voice doesn't matter, or doesn't matter how I feel, my needs aren't important, whatever, I have an ugly nose, like whatever, like just all these lies that come in, and they do get really, really heavy because we're not designed to carry that. So if we can take them to the Lord and then be like, okay, this is what happened, and this is what I feel about it, and this is the lies that I'm telling myself about this is the story I've made up, and just like get it all out there, and then ask his perspective. Like, how do you see, like, I think my voice doesn't matter. And he can speak back to me, no, I created you with a voice to make a difference. So speak up, and to do that, I don't call it the divine exchange. He talks about in scripture that he brings beauty from ashes and life from death. And so he loves to do that. We can take our mess and our heavy stuff and be like, here. And then we can learn to listen and hear his voice come back with the weighty truth of, no, I created you for glory. And like, that's weighty. It's a big deal, but it sits so different than the weight of you're not worthy and you don't matter.
Yeah. I tend to think of it as what you described. I tend to think of it as it's like a freeing. It's so much lighter, even as whatever truth is truly true, from God, whatever truth is truly true is weighty because it's big. I always feel it as sort of like, wow, that's really big, but it feels so good. It feels so much better than the weighty or the heavy or the, the enclosing and all of those sorts of that kind of imagery. But I have a question. I think I know the answer. I think I know the answer that you might give. However, I do have a question. When you say take our stuff, our heavy, our weighty, our worries, our struggles, our stresses, our challenges, when you say take that to the Lord, take that to God and share that with him, what do you mean? Does that just mean prayer? Because what if I don't know how to pray?
Well, that's the good thing of one of those expectations. Like, I don't know how to pray. That's a big, weighty, heavy thing. Prayer is a conversation. And so, yeah, it is prayer, but it can look like just talking out loud. I love to take it in writing. I just sit down and I'm like, good morning, Papa. Here's where I'm at. This is what's going on. This is what happened yesterday that I'm still stressed about, or whatever. And yeah, it's just a process of a conversation. And I've found for myself that if I take the time to get it all out, then I listen better. And then I just continue writing when, like just ask a question. What do you have to say about this? Or what do you want to show me in this? And I just keep writing. And it's
Yes.
always surprising and encouraging what he has to say.
Yes, yes, it is. I know that when I do journaling, I call it journaling. When I do my journaling, um, there's almost always a solid likeness. Now, I only say almost always because I do have children that like to get right in the middle where I'm getting to the good stuff. But almost always when I really finish through, that I feel so much light. I just feel light and I feel joyous and I feel, I don't know, airy. I mean, all the words are the same, right? But or sunny or whatever. But I also notice when I journal that sometimes nothing comes up. Now, does that mean that I have nothing to give, or what? What does that really mean? Because I think she's confused on what she wants to do. Really? Okay, here. You want down? Here. Here. You want a cup? Okay. Oh, she wants to check on her brothers. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll be here waiting. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, that's the joy of having a toddler. So, but I also know that sometimes people struggle with the writing because they feel like, oh, well, I didn't come up with anything. I didn't have anything to say. So what does that really mean? And since this is something that you very much do, you even have created a devotional. I know I'm a recipient also. But and that this is one of the ways that you try to help people to find their own answers and through your coaching process. So what does that mean when I don't have anything to say, or when I already feel good and like nothing seems to be coming out? What does that really mean?
I think it means it's a great time to connect about something else. I mean, if you think about with your best friend or your spouse, your partner, if you only ever come with your mess and listen for their answers, like how much fun is that? So to have a day where you can come and be like, I'm in a fabulous place and I just want to tell you about the fabulous place I'm in and how much I'm enjoying being here. Or even the days where you just kind of come like, I don't really have anything, but I want to be with you. Mm-hmm. And we can just hang out. Mm-hmm. And, whether that hanging out is reading scripture or whether it's listening to music or whether it's just hanging out with just nothing, because like you need that rest, that the hammock on the beach rest. Yes. But they're like, I'm just coming to be with you because you're a peaceful place.
Yes.
It doesn't have to produce something.
Yes.
We're not, our culture is so driven by needing to produce something. And that's not what our relationships are about. And so switching it from a religious practice or a religious performance to, no, it's actually a relationship, and think about other relationships. What do they look like? What do you want them to look like? Well, you want it to look like being able to just hang out and nobody has to perform anything. You can just be.
Well, and you hit it on the head, at least in my opinion. You hit it on the head where you're just like, but first of all, it's no fun to only just bring your mess and your garbage and your all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But also when you said, but you could just let it be, and you don't have to be, the word that comes to mind for me is productive. Like you don't have to always,
you don't have to produce anything.
This image of production, this expectation, here we are back to expectations, this expectation of performance. That was a really big word that I think you used as well. Because that is life. Sometimes we have a lot to do. Sometimes we have a little less to do. Sometimes there's this period of time, and I'd really love to hear you talk about this. But sometimes there's this period of time between doing a lot, and as that changes to doing just a little bit less, how that sometimes really throws us off. And by us, I'm going to say women and moms,
Yeah.
I cannot speak for everybody. However, my experience in my own life, my experience with other people that I know is that whenever there's a shift, especially when we have young ones, that when we're moving from this constant busy, constant watching, constant oversight to something a little less, that somehow all of a sudden I and other people that I've known who are moms feel like, oh my God, something's wrong, something else, what, this cannot be like this, like it has to be more. And one of the things I personally used to always attribute it to is that it was just a habit or a pattern of constantly being the watcher and the doer and all this. So I think part of it is the habit. But then also, I think part of it actually is part of natural life cycles, right? And I know this isn't your realm, and everybody, I've had guests that talk about this, so we can point you in that direction. But the natural cycles of the earth and of the seasons, and how that plays. And there always is this sort of place where like we haven't quite turned, but we're on the way. And so things are a little confusing, or sometimes daunting, or and especially I know, and maybe you could tie this in somehow, being in Alaska, your winter and your fall is drastically different than the winter and fall even in, say, Washington State, which isn't technically isn't that far from where you are. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's dive a little bit into that. Okay, I want to be able to get to that place of resting and reorienting. And I want to do that. And I want to do that well or better. But I always feel flummoxed when it comes. And how we can live with that as we're building a relationship with ourselves and with God, and kind of putting all that together.
Yeah, I think part of it, like you said, definitely the habit. But then I think another piece is that we can way too easily tie our performance and our tasks to our identity. And so then when those tasks and responsibilities change, we're like, I don't know who I am. Wait a minute, bring all that back. That was me. It wasn't you. But we easily fall into that trap of letting it be us, especially with little ones, because there's all the mom guilt and typically lack of resources and whatever. So it's really easy to lose who am I outside of all of these responsibilities, because like there just isn't resources. There's not time, there's not money, there's not energy, there's just no resources. But I strongly encourage you to make it a priority anyway, because then those transitions won't be quite so rough. But another part of that is, again, our culture portrays this like find balance. Like this is the epitome of what we're going after. We're trying to find balance. And we think balance is a point that we're going to arrive at where everything is good and it's just going to stay that way. And that's totally unrealistic. Because like you said, we're going through seasons. It's constantly changing. So if you think of balance like riding a bicycle, you cannot ride a bicycle without balance. And you can't really keep a bicycle balanced if you stay still. So as you're balancing the bicycle, you are constantly adjusting. You're constantly moving. So like you have a main pattern of what's going, but it's not this, I've arrived. Like, no, you're just constantly tweaking. And when those seasons shift to, kids going back to school, or you're starting up homeschooling again, or, a job has changed, or a new family member is coming, whatever, like there's big shifts. Like you just changed bicycles. Maybe you went to one of those big, heavy, fat tired bikes, and like, this is going to take you a bit of getting used to.
Yeah.
Like, the principles are kind of the same, but it's still a lot different. And just to have that grace that, yeah, it is a lot different, and it's going to take some time to figure out what works in this season. And a big part of that might be coming back to what part of my identity, what part of my worth was I tying to what I was doing before. And so how has that got me feeling discombobulated because like, oh, I had too much tied to that. And so now how do I come back to, or find for the first time, who am I outside of being responsible mom or employee or business owner or whatever those things are that can all be taken away.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things one of the things I heard you say just now was to stop trying to turn a bicycle into a tricycle.
Yeah, that too.
So that was one of the things I heard you say. But definitely this piece of how much of our self-worth and our identity, I think you used the word identity, but how much of that identity or self-worth are we tying to the things that we're doing, i.e. the production?
Mm-hmm.
And is that really us, or is it just something that we're doing because of whatever reason? For a mom, then we're feeding our kids every day, multiple times a day, because they need to eat and they need to learn what it's like to eat and all that kind of stuff, right? But also on the other side of that, if you are a person, say like me, who struggles with reactivity, um, then asking myself, then this is a constant, seemingly it's a current but seemingly constant battle of mine. But I'm always asking myself, like, what am I really reacting to here? Like, what is really happening? What's really
That's a
the
great
problem?
question.
Sometimes it's because I'm getting hungry and it's time to cook, but now I have to wait until I'm done cooking. Or sometimes it's, wow, the temperature is rising slightly and I didn't notice because I was doing something. And now I'm realizing that I'm really uncomfortable. Or, I thought I was sleeping and somebody is now kicking me in the side. Uh, you know, any number of those things can happen in a singular day. Or one of the ones I just, similar to what I just mentioned a few minutes ago, like I could be steadily working on something in business and here comes like, somebody's like fallen and like cut themselves or taken out a tool that they weren't supposed to have. And, and it's like, oh my gosh, right? But how to just kind of pull back a little bit. And I know since you do the life coaching and you do work with the women and the moms, the women, you work with women and moms, not the women, that, um, that one of the things that I'm sure that you help many people with is sort of identifying for themselves the different ways that they can either structure themselves or their day or think or whatever, so that they can start to create those pauses and that space between the feeling of overwhelm and the being rested in or being rested on a solid foundation. And how there's a little bit of space in there that we have to find for ourselves. And I'm sure that that's one of the things that you do, because you can't empower people if they can't find their own spaces. So tell us just really quick, one or two super simple, super quick things that that somebody could either do or look at doing, or maybe just talk to you further about how it is to implement these things. Let's talk about that real fast.
Yeah. So I think you kind of highlighted one of the key, like it's simple, it's not always easy, but just being aware and being curious. Like you were asking, like, what am I actually responding to here? And I loved that you gave basic, like, oh, I'm actually hungry, or I'm too cold, or I'm too hot, or, those kinds of things. But as you're aware, you might also notice a pattern to like when this happens, like your kid does something annoying and it's like a level 2 thing and you have like a level 8 reaction. If you notice a pattern of those, there's most likely a wound there. And there's some things you're telling yourself that are adding to your overall stress because like it's not a healthy thing, but it's just part of you from how you grew up or whatever. And so like rejection was a big one for me. So like my kids as teens, of course, they're always busy, always have places to go. And finding myself like taking that as being personally rejected and like going, what is this? And being able to then again take that to the Lord and process through and find that like rejection is just something that was like ingrained in me from growing up, because I always felt rejected. And so then you just see that everywhere. And so being able to, you know, have the awareness. No, I don't want that open.
Thank you.
The awareness for the little things of shoes.
Yes, she brought shoes. Sorry. She was so excited.
Yeah. So awareness of little things, and as a mom, awareness for your kids too, so that you can kind of help them be aware and develop that self-awareness. But then on those bigger things where you notice that like, wow, I totally overreacted to this.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, that's a signal there's more going on. And I think the biggest thing is just give yourself permission to, I don't have to respond right away. Like I can pause. I do have permission to take the space I need. And, you know, especially with little ones, everything feels immediate and urgent and right now, but it's not quite, you know, some of it definitely is, but like it doesn't have to be. There's room to be like, okay, hang on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and just get that. But dealing with the underlying, like if there's a constant current of being stressed or feeling unworthy or whatever, like you're already, if you think of your day of having an emotional bucket of how much stuff you can contain, if you're running a current of stress or rejection or whatever it is, then your bucket's always half or 3/4 full with all that stuff, then there's not very much room for other things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you can bring that down to where you're starting your day with an empty bucket or, you know, only a quarter full, then you've got a lot more space to deal with what comes in, to give yourself space. Because if that bucket is like right at the top, then having that pause is really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's not the space for it to hit the bottom. Like, nope, it hit.
Yeah.
Like it happened. It
Right.
hit.
Right. That's such good imagery with the bucket and how it gets full. It makes me think of, you know, the old, you know, sort of, I guess most people sort of have known or used or have heard of, you know, something about a cup. You know, is your cup overflowing with good or bad or what? And but I like the idea of a bucket, because it feels much more expansive than a cup, at least to me. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. We have a little Miss Bossy thing here. Let's see. First she was like, you cannot close the door. Then she's like, wait, I'm gonna move your table around. Sorry, everybody. Life with toddlers. So but buckets feel more expansive because they feel less like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this right now, then my cup is going to fill up right now, as opposed to, you know, if I think of a bucket, well, first of all, there's all different sizes of buckets. I mean, yeah, you can have a tiny bucket, but typically I think when people think of a bucket, it's at least a couple of gallons. And so, okay, so there's this little thing and this little thing and this little thing, but somehow I'm still down here at like a quarter. Okay, this is okay. This is actually okay. You know, and so I really love that the use of the bucket. And I know that something else sprang to my mind, but I have since forgotten it because I have been inundated with shoes all of a sudden. So would you like it back? This will be my little mascot this afternoon.
Prop for that.
But anyways, oh, I know what it was. I was going to say, about how you highlighted that when we do have reactivity, and if there's a pattern to our reactivity that we're noticing because we're aware, that there might be some sort of trauma or some wound or some area there that we need to maybe spend some more attention and give ourselves some more permission around, or release some expectation around. And I find that to be a really such a true thing in general. I, you know, many of you who are watching or who've been following me know that I've shared before, I used to be a social worker, or I used to practice social work. And so that was always my focus, was like, where are these traumas at, and how can we heal that? And I find that, this is a big area of actually most everybody's life. I mean, I'm willing to bet that we're right around that 99.8% of the population, all cultures, all socioeconomic status, all everything. We've got stuff, some bigger than others, some longer lasting than others, but we've got stuff, and then we bring that into whatever. Even we bring that into our relationship with God, if you would. And kind of all of that. So anyways, I just went off on a tangent. But I know that we are getting really close to some time here with all of our friends who are joining us for today's video. So I want to ask Mukkove if you want to participate in the Starlight round of questions. The Starlight round of questions are 3 questions. I think they're pretty surface level, but they have this element of deep. The only requirement is that as soon as I ask the question, you have to answer with what comes to your mind. So you cannot self-edit. And I know that you think really quickly on your feet. I also know that you are a writer, and you love the act of writing. So I also know how fast you can edit. However, I will catch you because I also am pretty attuned to these things. No self-editing unless you want to get called out. And we'll do the Starlight round of questions. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, awesome.
Sounds
All right.
challenging, but good.
Okay, so first one is, I'm going to ask you a really big one first. First one is, what is your biggest life or business challenge right now? How would you like to see that change, and how can we help you?
Okay, my biggest challenge right now is staying focused because I have way too many ideas. I have coaching programs, I have books, I have all kinds of stuff. So biggest way you could help is that actually when this airs will be the launch date for my new book. And so you can go to mess2majesty.com and download a free copy.
Yay! That is exciting. That was the little secret that I hinted at earlier, but I wasn't really sure because I knew it was out and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should. Okay, so everybody heard that. Mukkove has lots of ideas and lots of things she's doing. She's always doing a lot, trust me. But she has a new book that is coming out. And we will put the link below so that you can go and download a free copy. Is that what I heard you say?
It'll be free today.
Download a free copy just for today. How cool is that? Awesome. Okay. Actually, wait, before we go on, you've got to tell us just a little tiny more about this new book. Like, is this a reading book or what? Like, what is this?
This is like a devotional journal. So there's 4 different women from the Bible who, in one way or another, encountered Jesus in their mess, and then how we can just examples and activations for different ways that we can encounter Jesus in our mess.
Awesome. I love it. And it's mess2majesty.
mess2majesty.
Yeah. .com. Okay. But like I said, we'll have the link below, everybody. So just make sure that you go and click on that and you get this brand new devotional from Mukkove. As she fixes her lighthouse, and I have a diapered only child.
Going, do that. Put this away.
Right. Okay. All right. Next question. That was a really nice one. I like that one about awesome. All those ideas. Okay. Next one is share with us your biggest dream goal for this year. Now I know there's only a couple of months left here since we're in October, but share with us your biggest dream goal for this year and any way that we can help you to reach that.
Biggest dream would be to get Mess2Majesty to #1 and have that bring clients that want to work with me either one-on-one or in a group setting on actually walking through this and going, okay, that sounds great, but I have no idea how to do that myself.
Okay, awesome. Now, listen, Mukkove, I like the way you're tying this message majesty in. Like, that's super fun. First of all, I'm really excited. I think I told you before, but I'm really excited to see this book come forth for you. Okay, so biggest dream goal is that Mess to Majesty reaches a wider audience, gets more people to seeing you and the services and the value that you provide and support to others. So that is an awesome goal. And we are going to help you to reach that goal by making sure we download and connect with you and all of that stuff. We'll share all the connection places soon. Last question in the Starlight round. Tell me your biggest personal change in the process of building your business.
Confidence. Walking out, like anything I want to put in a lesson or my curriculum or a book, I have to walk it out first. And that's been really challenging and really discouraging at times when I forget to go back and look at it as like, no, this is just making sure that it's fresh and that I can verify, like, absolutely for sure this works because I just did this. Like, this isn't theory. This isn't something from 20 years ago. Like, I just did this.
That is really interesting. Yeah, confidence is a big one. And I think as women and moms, like, that's a huge one for us. And then we go into this business building mode, which may or may not be a switch. I mean, even for you right now, it's not a switch. You've got young adults at this point and you have a toddler. So yes. And 25 years of marriage. Like, what?
Yeah. And yet those voices will still come in and go, you don't have anything to say. You don't know what you're talking about. This doesn't actually work.
Yep.
And to go, oh, okay, you can shut up.
Yep.
Not true.
Yep. And here's a challenge to prove that that's not true.
Yeah.
So I love that. I totally get that. Okay. Is there anything, Mukkove, that you would like to share with our audience today, specifically somewhere around our topic? If you would like to share that, I would love for you to do that. Whether or not you have something to share, we definitely want to make sure that we are following you in all the places. So make sure that you list all of those so we can drop those links below and people can start following you and having those conversations with you.
All right. So I guess, we're kind of talking about rest, and that's been a big thing for me. So I would just encourage you to really be willing to shift your perspective of what rest is, and to realize that you can gain the tools and the skills that you need to be at rest, even in the chaos of life. Let's just keep it short. Like, you can be at rest. There's tools and skills that you can learn to have rest in a chaotic life. And so you can follow me, mukkovejohnson.com. There's information on my coaching, speaking blog there. Mukkove Johnson. Oh, I should have looked it up. I'm the only Mukkove Johnson I know of on Facebook. So if you search me, you'll find that. I have a Facebook community for support and encouragement. That's Ready, Set, Soar community. I'm just Mukkove on Instagram, and then Mess to Majesty.
That's right. Okay, so we will make sure that we drop those links below. We've got Mukkove Johnson, and she's the only Mukkove Johnson I know on Facebook too. So if it's like, hey, can the patents also connect? It's probably the right one. But yes, so Mukkove Johnson on Facebook, Mukkove on Instagram, mukkovejohnson.com, and then Ready, Set, Soar community, which, by the way, is a really nice place to hang out. There's some really cool people there, and you can get a lot of uplifting stuff in that space. And then Mess to Majesty, which is coming out today. It's coming out today. Yes. So we will make sure that we drop that link. We want you to go check that out. We want you to go download it for free, today only. And yeah, that's where we are. So thank you so much, Mukkove, for joining us here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome.
It was really fun. And just one last time, really quick, tell us very briefly what it is that you do, so we know why we're following you.
have a frog in my throat. I empower women to be able to get the tools and the training they need to get unstuck and to not live a life of overwhelm, but a life of peace and rest.
Yes, sorry for the funny faces, everyone.
That's okay.
And once again, in case you forgot who it is you're looking at and what this silly woman is with this kangaroo girl child here, who is acting like a kangaroo. This is Kendall Patton of New Organic Content Creation Services, where I help business owners and entrepreneurs to turn their original content into even more repurposed content. So that they can reach a wider audience, increase their visibility, and maximize the content they've already created, time, and energy. So everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you check all the links below for Mukkove. If you're watching on the replay, please make sure you let us know you're watching on the replay, because how else do we know that you saw us? And but if you've got any questions, any comments, anything like that, also make sure you leave those below, and we will make sure to answer those questions, point you in the right direction. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.